Good morning. Welcome back to Grief Chats with Abundant Sarah. Today we are continuing in our book, Everything Dies, a Celebration of Life coloring book. The day before we went over the first page. Now let's talk about the second page. There can be no living without dying. Don't be scared. Everything dies. This miraculous planet is full of the most wonderful creatures getting born, eating, producing, reproducing, dying, and getting eaten. All living things take the lives of other living things to live. When they die, their bodies feed new living things. Life cannot exist without death. You and I and all humans are a part of the cycle of birth and life, death and decay. Anyone who tells you otherwise is a nincompoop who hasn't spent enough time outside. You should take them outside, quick, while you're both still alive. This is really cute. I love it. I love how they called them a nincompoop after talking about poop pretty much. Yeah, I think going outside is one of the best ways to remember that you're alive, first of all. And being outside in nature is one of the best ways to reconnect with yourself and also like what you believe in. This has been a huge source of inspiration for me as I've been not only on my journey of grief and also deconstructing from religion. I have found a lot of solace and a lot of truth in nature. It's helped me come back to my sovereignty. It's helped me come back to what I believe in. Nature is always there for me, right? Unlike the people that, unlike since nature is always there for me, it's very unlike the humans that were supposed to be there for me. Namely, the ones that were in the church where I grew up. A lot of which didn't reach out to me for my dad's death. Seeing who reaches out to you when someone really close to you dies is really important. Also, not allowing people to come back into your life just because they were there for you when someone dies is also just as important. So even though I saw old friends that I had walked away from, old friendships that weren't serving me, these old friends showed up at my dad's funeral, and I really appreciated seeing them. It was really emotional knowing that they were supporting me, and it was a really emotional time in general, obviously. So I really did appreciate them showing up and being there and putting whatever in the past was aside to support me at my dad's funeral. But at the same time, I'm not just going to let them back in my life. That's just not what I'm about to do. I've come too far, I've changed so much, and I know that if they were meant to be here, they would be here. So pay attention to who reaches out to you when people die. Don't overthink it if they do, as if, well, should I, let them back into my life? Just remember like what it was, the reason why. Stand in your truth. I mean, it can be really hard for people that come from a background of religious trauma, of sexual trauma, of traumas where your sovereignty was taken away from you, your free will. You learned that you couldn't trust yourself to make decisions. And that's why it's really important to always be coming back to yourself and having techniques to be able to ground yourself and relearning what it means to have your own sovereignty, because you didn't grow up with it. And if you didn't grow up with it, you have to learn about it now that you're an adult. So that was a little bit of a tangent. This page I'm working on these worms. And I'm trying to make them as realistic as possible with doing like pink and reds and browns, because I'm seeing like the first thing I saw when I saw this page was red wiggler worms, because I have been exploring how to compost because I want to create my own garden in the backyard. And I wanted to start by starting a compost pile to start getting that good soil nutrients. After looking into composting even more, I discovered that the worms can help you speed along the process a lot. But they also are really messy, and I'd have to make sure they don't die in the compost. And composting takes a long time to break down, which means even though if I start today, I won't have composting soil for about a year. That's fun. I don't know where I'm going to be in a year, but I can't hold off on gardening, so because I want to grow my own food, especially with not knowing where the world is going. So I just think it's interesting that the first page is worms. I guess because they really are the world's like composter, right? And like this whole section, this whole page is about how like life and death have to exist together, because without the one, the other one wouldn't work. Especially when we see that out in the animal world. A lot of life depends on death to eat from and to fuel them and to be able to sustain their lives. So this approach of being about death and decay and it being a signal of life is actually quite beautiful, and something that really caught my eye when I first picked out this book 6 years ago. I still can't believe I just like happened to like pick out this book from this woman's Reiki shop. She was selling like herbs and other odds and ends, and I had went to get a session from her for my birthday. And if it was 6 years ago, that means I was 27. Yeah. And what was weird about the whole thing was I went and got my Reiki done, and Layla was like, so like, what's the messages you have for Sarah? You know, like what's good with that? Like, I was very new to it still, and I was still going through my deconstruction. So part of me was pretty skeptical of like messages like that was like, I've always been so logical, especially coming out of religion. I'm like, like who can like really be one to give me a message, you know, like is it real, is it not real, whatever. Well, this woman says Sarah has a lot of big decisions to make coming up. Okay, like vague much? Well, the big decision I was supposed to make was whether or not I was going to take the fall for Layla and I when we got pulled over and caught for possession of weed before it was legal. Literally months before it was legalized. This is in 2019, and then in 2020 it was legalized for recreational. So I made a decision to take the fall for the arrest, and I got arrested that year. And that was a huge push forward in a lot of ways. To be a leader, to not be afraid, to be courageous, to speak my truth. I also was kind of what's the word? It's not like I was also closing out an old chapter in which my roommate in college got arrested for weed. And she always blamed me that I didn't get arrested and that she blamed me, whatever. And this was a big, like, full circle moment. Taking the fall and knowing I'd be okay and protecting Layla and choosing Layla as my best friend and my confidant. We were already living together at the time, so it was definitely just like really solidifying it even more, that I was in this with her and that I wasn't going to leave her or throw her under the bus or betray her. And then she solidified it for me by also showing me the same, sticking by me, helping me through the process, helping me pay for it, and being able to go to court and sit there, and gave me courage to do all that. She never left my side the whole time, and it really showed us what true friendship and true relationship looks like. And both of us never had a healthy example of relationships, so it was really special that we got to see it and build it with each other. And I think that has been one of the biggest blessings in my life, is my friendship with Layla, because we have built a family together. We have been there for each other through each other's hardest moments, her breaking her leg and having to get leg surgery, her aunt passing away after a really long battle with dementia and a really traumatic death, my dad passing away after a really long battle with cancer and a really also traumatic death. And we both have just stayed by each other's side. We've never given up. And I think that's one of the most beautiful things that you can do in life, is develop deep, real connections where you truly respect one another and treat each other with unconditional love and support. And I think that's one of the beauties of life. And the beauties of death, because death will bring us together with those that maybe we weren't close to before, or we wanted to solidify. So for me and my mom, we have been able to come a lot closer together because of my father's death. Before he died, we were in a good relationship, but she was also very distracted, obviously, with my dad's health and caretaking for him as he battled cancer. And she always tried, and she's always praying for me, and always has been a loving mother. There was just a lot that I couldn't cope with regarding, like, how she wasn't vulnerable with her emotions, and how we couldn't, like, emotionally connect very well around things that were like not positive, like anger and depression and sadness and frustration and injustice. Those were all emotions that she couldn't tap into to be present with me for. And it was a huge reason as to why I was so angry with her years ago, and why I had actually stopped talking to her. It's because of this wall and this block. And I was also extremely depressed at the time. But I was really struggling with how, like, I didn't have a mother who I could, like, cry with and, like, feel, like, super supported with, who I could, like, tell anything to and not be afraid of judgment. But after therapy and after spiritual healings, I realized that my mother was dealing with a lot of past life issues that were getting in the way of this life. And knowing that and learning that and really understanding that for myself was a huge reason as to why I gave her a second chance. and I opened the door again for a relationship. And now, years later, after all of that, my mom and I talk on the phone, and in the background, as we're talking, all I hear is this. And when it first started, I was like, Mom, what's that knocking noise? What is that knocking noise like? It's annoying, it's like loud. She's like, there's no knocking noise. I was like, what? There's a knocking noise. It's like persistent, it's slow, it's like, sounds like it's like coming from your wall. No, there's no knocking noise. Well, it's Dad. Dad's saying hello. Dad is so excited when me and her talk. He is so excited that he takes all of his spirit energy and he bangs on the wall. That is so cool. He knocks on the wall, bangs on the wall. Whenever we talk, it's so cool. And my mom and I are crying on the phone together now. And we're having conversations around, what still haunts us about my dad's death and what we still think about. And she tells me what she learned in her grief share group. And I share what I've been thinking about. And it's a whole new relationship that was brought to us through death. Life comes through death. That's just how it is. You start to see it connect in ways that you never thought before. It doesn't just stand out to you right when someone dies. When my dad died, I had been thinking a lot about like what was going to come after that. But I wasn't thinking so much about the moment itself when he died. And so when I was there in the moment itself, I had a lot of like old memories come back from like the Bible. If you grew up with the Bible, you might know the story around like Jesus dying. Just a little old story about Jesus dying. And when he died and they put him in the tomb, these women would go to the tomb and they would sit outside his grave and they would cry. And there's like a quote in the Bible or whatever, a story that Jesus is like, because he comes back from the dead. Spoiler alert. He comes back from the dead and he goes, why do you stand at my grave and weep? Like, I am not there. Like, my body's there, but I'm not there. And it was such like a thing in Christianity that like, oh, like, don't praise and cling to someone's dead body because they're not there anymore. And then it becomes into this territory of like idol worship. I can't keep up with the fucking Christians, That's why I had to get out. No, I was sitting at my dad's dead body and I was touching it. I was laying on him. I was sobbing on his chest and I was wishing that he was still alive so I could feel his belly push me up and down with his breathing like I was when I was a little kid. I was reaching out for his body, feeling his body, trying to hold his hand, even though it was just so dead. I talked about it in the first video. It was, and I kept having this like thought run through my mind about how in the Bible they tell us not to do this. Sorry, I'm gonna sit here and I'm gonna mourn my fucking dad, and I think my dad would appreciate that. And it was confirmed by Layla, that he was there watching the whole thing from the corner and really appreciated how my mom and I was touching his body and being so, intimate with him, even though he had died.